Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast, hosted by yours truly, Misty Magdalena Grace, also known as Magical Mags. I am an abundance alchemist, helping you alchemize fear into love, pain into purpose, scarcity or lack into abundance, so that you can live your best life, your best health, your best wealth, your best relationships by trusting your best wisdom within. Please enjoy the show, like and subscribe, and leave a review if you see value in this amazing show. And feel free to stay in till the end. You may have a surprise gift waiting for you on the other side of this episode. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. Magdalena Grace here for another exciting episode. If you have been missing my interviews, it's because there's been a lot going on since my last interview. And so I just want to first before we dive in, give an official welcome. I'm closing in on 400 episodes. I'm closing in on 6 years. You still see the 5th year anniversary celebration was last July. So I'm really honored and humbled to still be going strong. And if you find value, if you find this on YouTube, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. I am absolutely staying active on YouTube and bringing in more powerful, potent content. So I want to just dive right in because this is really powerful. And this is actually going to be a part 1 of maybe 2, who knows, maybe even 3 shows where we're bringing to you some really intense stuff. So trigger warning. If you're watching this or listening to this on my podcast, I just want to warn you that what we're talking about today could be alarming, could be triggering. In fact, if you unsubscribe, I won't be offended. But I really have found over the past 5-6 years of doing this show that there's nothing better than authentic truth. However, the truth, as powerful it is, it may first piss you off, but then it'll set you free. Some of the stuff we're talking about today, quite honestly, I didn't believe in 2 months ago. And the universe just keeps bringing me breadcrumbs to continuously expand my consciousness, which is what this show is about, and bringing you information that's truth, not just fluff, not just bullshit, and not trying to hide behind a mask. So ultimately, most of you have heard a little bit from different shamans and different spiritual teachers and healers. And I just want to put it out there right now. If you have heard a shaman on my previous show, I hate to tell you the truth, but I got to. Most of them were filled with dark energy. Most of them had predatory energy. Most of them even had entities attached to them. And I didn't know any better until I went through the past 2 to 3 years of awakening. So since 2024, I have been learning more and more about predatory energy, darkness, and really, really, really screening carefully my guests and really, really screening carefully anybody now in my life. So I say that to say, before I introduce today's guest, that I have vetted this gentleman. I have now worked and hired this gentleman, and he came, he passed all my bullshit meters. And he came recommended by some really, really good people. So Anthony, I want to go ahead and introduce you so you can dive right in and share your story. And just, knowing that I met you, I vetted you, I screened you, he came highly recommended by grounded professionals that I trust. I would love for you to just dive in and share your story as a shaman with the Ojibway background and share more with us what you do.
Great. Well, thank you, Magdalena, and thank you for having me on the show. And this is going to be, like you said, it'll be triggering for some, but it'll be a validation of truth for others. So I am a U.S. Army veteran, over 18 years for this country. I am a shaman, a very specific shaman that deals just really with identifying and removing all kinds of different types of demonic beings on world, originate from this world and off world. Also little kind of other attachments like earthbound souls, and some people have heard the term trickster spirits. And I've been doing this professionally with Mystic Taurus Spiritual Services since August of 2023. So I am an Ojibway Native American descendant. That's how I am a spiritual shaman. And my lineage goes back at least 204 generations, I did find out. I am also a multi-modality energy healer. I use different modalities of Reiki, like traditional Reiki, crystal Reiki, Reiki Fire, and other types. I use higher dimensional energy healing practices also. I also use Qigong, some aspects of Qigong, to also be of service and doing energy work. And I've got experience of around 150 to 200 customers, 8 different states, overseas, 2 different countries. I also do work, Reiki work, healing work for pets. So I love the pets so much, just like we all do. So I work on the pets for free because I believe they deserve every good thing we can ever do for them. So my journey started as me being, I was born with a brain tumor. I found out later it was probably because my biological father was a Vietnam veteran. He was exposed to Agent Orange. That's probably why I had the brain tumor. But through that, I found out through my adoptive dad, he told me that before I had the seizures from the brain tumor, he said I was a totally different person. And he said afterward, I had the surgery and all that, I was totally different. And so I was more interested in sci-fi. I was more interested in spiritual woo-woo and, that kind of thing. And so from there, I started seeing shadow beings, little spirits. And then as I had my spiritual awakenings and my spiritual tunings in, and my many layers of what most of us would call, we're doing the dark work, the dark night of the soul. We're experiencing shifts. Through those experiences, I encountered all these different abilities and all these things that start showing up in myself in my life. Like, for example, being able to communicate and sense and feel when spirits are around me externally. I could feel them, I could sense them, and eventually learn how I could communicate with them. Certain modalities, I can communicate with them. Just through my intuition, for one thing, I can use that. I can use dowsing rods to communicate with them. I use a pendulum. And then I had other abilities coming up where I could see faces, spirit faces in trees and rocks and all over the place. So, and even in my apartment when I lived in another location in Minneapolis. And then all these abilities start waking up. And then 2010, I had a major spiritual awakening and alignment with Source, and activated my intuitive empath abilities. I mean, full blown, no tweaking, no little bits, no itty bitty bits. I mean, just from 0 to 100. And then from there, I've grown from intuitive medical into being a medical intuitive. Can scan people's bodies, feels people's body, feel what's going on in their body, and feel and be able to sense and feel what's going on. And so I can know what's going on. Then from there, I got into more deep spiritual, kind of going down the rabbit holes and separating myself from organized religion and finding out for myself who is Source, who is what we call God, and then who is He, who is God to me. And then that took me in another direction. Then over time, everything started lining up. Like one ability after the other started showing up as I was ready. I did my own shadow work. I did my deep night of the deep dark soul work. I did all that. As that was dug up, more light was able to come in and sit in. And therefore, alignments came up, more abilities came. And I always knew there was going to be, why am I here? I know I was here for something, a spiritual purpose. And in August of 2024, Archangel Michael communicated with me. And he said, time. I said, time for what? He said, you'll see. And I trusted it. So I was going to use my abilities as a healer and a shaman. I went down to a crystal shop that had a room we could rent every month for doing work. And I was there, I was signing up for it. I was talking to the owner, telling her I do healing work, and Archangel Michael whispered in my ear, like, hey, tell him you do demon removal too. I'm like, what? I'd never done that. I said, don't worry, we'll teach you everything. So they taught me everything. And he taught me about different modalities of Reiki and using crystals and Reiki Fire and all these different types. He taught me everything. And so far, I've had one client totally recover when I was doing the crystal Reiki work. Totally recovered. He couldn't walk. He could barely walk. He could barely move. And 2-3 weeks later, he walked in the door like nothing ever happened. I'm so grateful for that. I was like, wow, you know. And I've done a lot. Most of my work has been with doing the demon entity removals for people. And they are focused on mostly those that are spiritually awakening also, because they are so deathly afraid of divine feminine waking up and gaining its power, its full-fledged power. This is a lot of people are being attacked, especially empaths, especially ones that are in the healing arts. We are constantly under attack, and I know what the attacks are like because I've been attacked. After I would go remove entities from people, a day or two later, there would be some kind of entity in my apartment. Was upset with me. Then I'd like, you're upset with me, huh? It's like, yep. I'm like, good. Yep. So I called on Archangel Michael. He just made light work of him, got rid of him, and then ever since then, I've been growing and developing the skills and the gifts to where now I can remove entities that are on world and off world. So a lot of the ones that are attacking now, the empaths, the ones that are spiritually awake, have abilities that we're working on growing, we're being attacked by a specific entity, off-world entity right now. And it's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. We're in a major attack period right now because they are definitely afraid of the divine feminine waking up, everyone coming into their power, because they know once we come into our power, there's nothing they can do to us. There's absolutely nothing.
You brought up a couple things there that thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's much deeper, right? We could probably
much deeper. Yes.
Both of us, we could probably have like 5-hour documentaries about our lives, right? And still have more. But I also want to touch on the shadow work aspect before we go to the divine feminine. So really quickly, because what I alluded to earlier, those of you who are watching live or on the replay, welcome. I also just want to acknowledge scrolling across the screen. If you're seeing this on camera right now, it says comment below with questions. We will have some time for questions. We're going to have a part 2. So that's another reason I want to introduce Anthony slowly, because there's only so much we can cover. And honestly, with what we're sharing with you, there's probably only so much out of integrity to share with you, because it can be overwhelming. But the shadow work component, that's what impressed me. One of the many things when I screened Anthony before I hired him to help me with some entity removal, I really was excited about the shadow work aspect, because most shamans and medicine women that I have worked with, sadly, they have bypassed the shadow work. And so I talk about shadow work all the time, Carl Jung, making the unconscious conscious. But in your own words, Anthony, what does shadow work mean to you?
I think, well, there's a lot different aspects to it, but for the main thing for me was going down and looking at the wounds in myself and the excuses I would make for not looking at the wounds, the excuses I would make for, I don't want to even deal with this. And I mean, really digging into what is within me that is keeping me from actually pursuing my purpose, pursuing my reason for being here. And being brought up by a very narcissistic mother, a drug addict, really drug addict, alcoholic, a lot of psychological issues, things like that. It was a very abusive environment for many years. And so, and this is typical for any empath. This is a journey we have this is a lesson and a journey we have to go through, the empath and the narcissist. And until we go through and learn everything, we're going to keep repeating those experiences, same experiences, different face. This is exactly what it's going to be. And I had to go back and really challenge everything, because I had narcissistic tendencies because I was brought up by a narcissist. I had perfectionism. I had, other things that I would be avoiding, avoidance tactics of wanting to look into my inner self and challenge everything that I was taught. And everything I was taught, like, hey, you're no good. Basically, yeah, you're no good and you'll never be anything. Nobody's ever going to like you. No one's ever going to love you. You're never going to make anything out of your life. You know how narcissists do this. They just put on the gaslighting and they do all this other thing to you. And so that destroys, especially if a young kid, that destroys any sign, anything identified, anything to identity, And so my identity, I really didn't know who I was. So part of that going down deep was figuring out, who am I? I'm not here to be some beat up toy from a narcissist, So be a punching bag. I had to go down and fight, okay, this person said meet this, I was this, I was this, I was this. And I realized that because my mother didn't have a great life. She went through a lot of abuse and traumas. And part of what I had to realize is what I kind of avoided for a while, but you know what? She didn't have a great life either.
Yeah.
How could she raise a child to be healthy?
You were carrying some of her projections also, right? That was in your DNA from your ancestors, and all of us have this.
Yes, absolutely. And there was programming still left in me, which, because of somebody we know here in Minnesota, this person removed a lot of that. And I found out a lot of my trauma on my Native American side went back 204 generations. And a lot of programming left in me from my mother, even, at this age. And a lot of that's gone now. And so the deep dive going into doing the deep work of the soul is looking at the filth, looking at the crap, looking at what everyone else said I was. I had to go deep and figure out who I was. I didn't really care who other people said I was. I didn't know who I was. That's just why I had to go deep. I had to go figure this out. And I had to start challenging everything everyone ever told me, especially my mother and other family members, And this was going down, and everything that ever hurt me, I had to go back and revisit, And one of the ways I did it is everything that ever hurt me, every either was physical, emotional, even if it was just perceived. I would go through the experience like I'm in a movie theater, big screen. I'm the only one in the movie theater. I'm sitting in the middle. I got my popcorn. I got my drink. All right. And I'm bringing up this experience on the big screen, but the sound is turned off. And I'm experiencing this. I'm watching it as an observer. And then I'm watching everything going on, and without being traumatized. And I'm just in a learning mode of love and curiosity. Okay, why did I perceive this was an insult or a hurt to me? And a lot of these things that I learned by doing this was most of the stuff that I perceived was directed toward me to hurt me, or was someone else telling me what I wasn't about me. It was about them. So I accepted a lot of trauma and a lot of guilt and shame, especially, narcissists, they do that. And that wasn't mine. And I realized that by that process, doing that. And I had to challenge my perfectionism. I had to challenge all my avoidance tactics, is why I wouldn't want to look at myself or that. That if I'm so bad, if they're saying I'm bad, what does that reflect about them? So I started looking at everything through the perspective of love and curiosity. And that's a tactic I learned from Dr. Wayne Dyer. So when you look at everything through love and curiosity, you can't experience guilt. You can't experience shame. You can't experience being re-traumatized. And then you go through and just go through every experience you've ever had like that. And you're like, you know what? This wasn't even directed for me. I took it on as mine anyway. Then I just learned to release and just release and let it go. And then forgive. forgive, everyone in my life that I thought hurt me, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized down the line, and one thing I really realized down the line, it was just recently, as empaths, intuitive empaths, and as awakened spirit, we have coming in as we have a purpose. I realized one thing: I wasn't on this earth to be punished and abused. Yeah, everything I went through was a lot of it was very hurtful and things. But I realized I wasn't here to be abused in someone's punching bag. I was being trained to be a cycle breaker, a matrix breaker, a bad family habit breaker, ancestral lineage habit trauma breaker. That's why I was here.
Yeah.
That shifted everything in me. And then from that, these other abilities just bam, another ability
came online. Yeah. I want to share that was great. And that's also, again, I'm just going to give you props, but also share with you shamans, spiritual people, even Christians and religious folks. A lot of times they're like, oh, look at me, I'm the guru, I'm spiritual. I mean, look what happened with Deepak Chopra and the Epstein thing. I mean, we have to take radical responsibility for our shit. However, I want to add something from a divine feminine perspective, and then we're going to go into the divine feminine. For me, one of my shadows was the good girl persona, because I was too much, I was too loud, I was too emotional for my family of origin, but then also later my now ex-husband. I got shut down. And so what that did for me, though, was repress a lot of anger and created a lot of grief. That's why I just hosted an amazing Sacred Rage event. So I just want to reiterate, and then we'll dive into divine feminine, because this is what divine feminine mother showed me. There's a dark feminine, and then there's the light. Same thing with the masculine. There's the dark and the light. And we're talking about darkness from shadow and narcissism, but there's also the dark on both feminine and masculine that says, okay, this is not okay. That's why we have protests. That's why when Renee Good and Alex Preddy were killed, people were like, wait, what the fuck? This isn't okay. So a lot of us who operated from the good girl, good boy persona, we're like, this shit has got to stop. So we start speaking our truth. We start emoting. I'm much more passionate. I'm much more vocal now, and using discernment, right? I'm not trying to just, scream at everybody, right? Although I did have some episodes where if I didn't handle my rage, which I didn't at first because I didn't know what Divine Mother was trying to get through me, my chakra systems, the ancestors who were pissed off, who were killed in battle, who were burned at the stake in battle, trying to scream and they couldn't. That is still in our DNA. So you've got to be able to process this before, I'm just going to put it out there, before you get to forgiveness, because here's the problem. I, being a super traded empath who is very conscientious and very loving, would always give that narcissist the benefit of the doubt and forgive way too quickly. So just for those of you out there, especially if you came from the church like I did for 29 years, forgiveness has got to also be earned. It's more about forgiving yourself and healing and getting that shit out, or you die of cancer. I mean, Anthony, I have so many friends right now who are dying of stage 4 cancer, especially liver, lung. That's anger, that's grief. And if you don't process that somatically, I'm here to say you're just a disease waiting to happen. You got to be really, really understanding of getting out what the body has kept for your ancestors, your parents, yourself, and then the collective. Because if you're an empath, you're also taking on all the soup that's swimming around us. And so I don't know if you want to add to that briefly, Anthony, because of time's sake. I know we're going to have more interviews, but is there anything else that you want to share, and then talk about the divine feminine from there? Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah, because as an empath, we absorb every energy that's out there. And we absorb trauma, not only ourselves, but collective trauma. And I can feel it just driving down the highway. Certain areas of the cities here have a really dark, low vibration. Other areas have a very, very high vibration also. And I can drive down the road, I can feel clusters of anger and guilt and rage and all these other emotions. Just as I drive, I can feel them. And so, especially as empaths, we really need to look into natural methods, like grounding. We have to have a definite, very, very strong self-care discipline, multi-discipline. At the very beginning, I was using crystals because I was tuned into crystals and grounding. And I know how to use crystals with Reiki to help heal people and certain things in the body. That was before I learned how to do Reiki, different forms of Reiki, and then higher dimensional healing energies that are a couple, 2, 3 dimensions above that. And then working through Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Saint Germain, and others, bringing in healing. But yeah, we have to learn. It is absolutely necessary. You can't go without it. There's certain ways we can create our own field. We can generate our own protection field within ourselves. And I've been doing that for years because I worked at the airport for many years, and so many people. I was taking on so much of other people's energy, and I just got tired of that. I started making my own disciplines. So
well, it's your sovereignty, right? We haven't talked about that word sovereignty, but you're reclaiming your sovereignty by taking radical responsibility to learn to provide and protect for yourself. That's divine masculine. But let's talk about that divine feminine. Let's dive into that because you and I are both passionate about that. And that's what's coming out on the planet now. That's why we have Epstein, Trump, and all of this kind of bullshit. And the darkness is trying to fight back because they don't want the divine feminine to win. I've talked about it on my show before, but I'd like for you to share what does the divine feminine mean for you and how it applies to your work.
Well, the divine feminine is key to my work. It's really key to any kind of healer, any shaman, anybody that does healing. It is through the divine feminine. That's where the healing comes from. That's where a lot of the healing comes from. And it can be too masculine. Like me, I was too masculine because guess what? I was raised by a narcissist. So we had to be over masculine, right? And it kind of a protection kind of thing. But it doesn't really work. It's an ego protection kind of thing, but it doesn't really work. So when I was, as an empath, we need to be balanced, divine feminine, divine masculine. Now, divine feminine is not only about love, but it's love for ourselves. Deep, deep love, understanding deep, deep love. We are a little piece of source. We came from love, and I've had some spiritual experiences with being connected to divine feminine, like through Sophia and Lumen and Sir Raphael. Especially this pendant that I told you about. It's a connection to divine feminine directly, and I can talk right to.
Maybe, do you mind? Can you define Sophia? Because I've talked about Sophia, but not a ton. So if you can reference what Sophia means to you.
Microphone.
I can still hear you. You're still there. Can you hear me now? Test. 1, 2, 3. You just muted yourself. So if you can unmute you. You're still muted. Here, let me see. I think I can unmute you. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. That was a perfect pause.
I can't hear you.
We needed a pause. Okay. If you want to, you can leave and come back. Technical difficulties, everyone. Just wait until Anthony can come back. You're on mute right now.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Test. 1, 2, 3. Just go out and come back in. Go out and come back in. Maybe leave and come back. Sorry, guys. So we're having a little bit of technical issues. Even though we're past the Mercury retrograde, we still have a little bit of the shadow. Anthony, if you're just joining us, I do see we have someone here live. Comment below, #live, city and state and country where you're tuning in from. We're about 30 minutes into talking about predatory energy, demonic forces, entities, and more with the Ojibway Shaman Anthony, who has helped me incredibly this past couple of months. So let's see Anthony, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yay. So perfect pause. I got to say hello. We have a person tuning in from Canada. Welcome, welcome. So excited to have you here, Lily. So we were just diving into Sophia. Can you just define Sophia for people who don't know?
From my experience, she's a divine feminine, kind of like goddess, but God energy, God consciousness. From what I was told, she's the one that actually created the archangels. So that's accurate. My work through here has been through someone else that I connected with. This person has a YouTube channel, so I've been learning about the divine feminine through, his experience with divine feminine directly with Sophia and Seraphiel and Illumin. They're all aspects of each other, of Sophia. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to add,
yeah.
Carl Jung endorses her. She's considered the wisdom. She is considered our creator. So when someone says God, man, it's actually, we were created by a woman, the womb, Sophia's womb, Sophia Gaia, also known as the womb of no thing. And whether you call it a big bang, whether you call whatever, and that's the stuff that's coming back right now, and people are not aware of it. So that's why we want to talk more openly about it. The patriarchy killed the women, killed the divine feminine, shut that down about 5,000-ish years ago. Everybody's got a different opinion on the timeline, but at the end of the day, that's why she's making a comeback now. And for better for worse, the divine feminine is also the darkness. The divine feminine is also helping bring forth the unconscious, making it conscious. That's why Carl Jung was such a big proponent of the feminine and the masculine rebalancing energy. And most of our feminine and masculine examples were our parents. So that's why if you have a lot of wounding and trauma that you've never dealt with, unfortunately, it's showing up for you now. And if you don't deal with it, it could cause a lot of problems, or you may be forced to look at it. I know that's also why, kind of transitioning into why I connected with you. I wanted to, share a little bit of my story, not so much because a lot of people have heard it, but similar to Anthony, I grew up with a lot of darker energies around me. My mom was a schizophrenic. My brother was an alcoholic. And there was a lot of, like, we'll call them hungry ghosts energy, and a lot of things that I couldn't process as a kid. So what I tried to do, my empathic self, was trying to help the pain and suffering and the shame and the guilt that was around me. But I had digestive issues. I was sick a lot, lots of colds, ear, nose, and throat, strep throat, which later in life turned out to be an autoimmune disease. Later in life, I was a closet alcoholic. Later in life, I married someone who mirrored all of my wounds from childhood. So this is a segue into, ultimately, since about 2007, 2008, a lot of people have been going through a lot of shit, health issues, financial issues, marital issues. The divorce rate is higher. Less and less people are getting married because there's just so much energy on the planet in this age of Aquarius coming in. And if you don't do the work like Anthony and I have, it can cause so much challenge and issues in your life. It's the planet trying to wake us up to remember who we are, not just us as empaths if you don't identify as that. But by the time I found Anthony, I had been through exorcisms with my ex. I've been through so many predatory attacks from business mentors, from all sorts of people coming in and out of my life, clients, customers, friends, quote unquote, people who were in the medicine space, shamans that I've actually had on my podcast before. They were carrying that, and they were attracted to my light. And so until I raised myself beyond, like Anthony, with that shadow work, and really tapped into what the hell was going on with me? Why am I attracting all of these weird people that aren't grounded, that are really not true professionals? They're kind of like flying by the seat of their pants. It's because they were ungrounded. They were avoiding their shadow work. They were avoiding the true work, escaping through drugs, alcohol, work, social media, scrolling, all of these distractions or addictions, as people call them, right? And so by the time I found Anthony, I had done a lot of clearing, but then I actually needed him for one more next step, because these beings, right, they keep coming back. And even if you do an exorcism on someone, if they don't do the shadow work, guess what? the food is still there for the entities, the dark forces, the demonic forces to come and
Yes.
feed inside of that person. That's why alcoholics, they're always going to be alcoholics, because they're still surrounded by the hungry ghost energy until they decide to do the work.
Yeah.
So that was a lot I just kind of threw at you all, but that was why I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, because when I met Anthony, he came into my life and said, like, oh my gosh, you actually also have a hybrid, I'm just going to say it, reptilian, sucking through your life force energy and tentacles around your lower 3 chakras and pulling from your children and all these hundreds of people around you. And I had already done a lot of work. I'd already done what I thought was necessary. But because I still had that reptilian force, I was not fully able to have a grounded central nervous system, fully able to be fully in my power. And so Anthony helped with the removal, helped with healing with my central nervous system and my PTSD, because that was very, 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 very traumatic for me. All of that, from childhood up to marriage, even beyond my divorce. So just wanted to share that to kind of like tee it up for you, Anthony, to just kind of get like a basic level of the different beings, entities, and things that are happening on the planet with Epstein, Trump, and what you're seeing. I'd love to pass it back over to you.
So I'll get into a little more about my abilities and why someone with my abilities is what's needed in order to deal with a reptilian. So I'm an empath. I'm an intuitive empath. I'm also a medical intuitive, right? I'm also psychic. I'm also a medium, but I'm an energy healer and I'm also a shaman. So the reason that makes a difference, like say, there's all kinds of different entities and combinations. But why this is important, because I'm a psychic medium shaman, I can see more than just a psychic, see more than just a medium, and see more than just a shaman. And therefore I can sense more and I can see more. And therefore, like dealing with reptilians, we can remove those. We can combat them and remove them. And with other like entities that are on the planet. Most of the time people think of a demon or an entity, you're thinking of the ones that we read about in the Bible. The ones that Jesus talked to, right? And we said to remove demons, and he talked to one person and he said, what is your name? The response from the demon within the person was Legion. My name is Legion. I mean, it's 1,000 demons. And so they can take over a person. They can talk to a person. They can actually take them over. I've experienced that twice. And so you can be like low density demons, like the ones that love to latch to people because of addictions, alcohol and drugs and other relational addictions and trauma addictions. Like that's a very good point you made, because I can do all the removal work, right? But until you get rid of the source that they're feeding off of, that you're going to keep trying to come back, right? But one thing I do is I give spiritual protection. Once they're removed, I can give spiritual protection. Mm-hmm. So that gives the person time to address going through and doing the dark night of the soul work, doing the needed work they need to do instead of avoiding it. You got to remove the food. You got to remove their fuel. Mm-hmm. And there's what I call fourth density ones, which are ones that are still powerful. The third density ones don't really do a whole lot to people. They're just kind of annoying. It's a life interruption kind of thing. But fourth density beings can be very, very powerful. They can actually physically kill somebody. And I've experienced that 3 times, where 3 people's lives were saved because of the process that I worked through Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, because when Archangel Michael said, "Are you ready?" I said yes. So if I wouldn't have said yes, who knows what would have happened, And I'm not doing that to boost myself. Everything goes to Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and all the way up. It's not about me. But if I would have not said yes, who knows what would have happened, Then there's also other beings that are off-world. I've dealt with other ones that are off-world, like archons. They're different. Instead of attaching to the outside, they go directly inside. They hang around your first and second chakra. They feed off of everything you haven't been paying attention to, all your trauma, your drama, everything. they feed off of that, and they can actually take you over if there's enough of them. What I've experienced, they come in groups of threes, so it can be very traumatizing. And then there's other ones. I don't have to get into all of them. And then we know about the reptilians. And now we can get into this to the next, our next video. But those are the ones that are very adamant, really hate humanity. They were behind the whole jab thing. A lot of their influence was behind that whole jab thing. And a lot of governments in this world are run and influenced by them also. So that's how dark it goes. That's how deep it goes. So everything that's going on with politics in the world, everything, it's the figures we see that are in the camera and, you know, on the news, they're just the puppets. You know.
Well, even major influencers like Justin Bieber and Katy Perry. I mean, there's been different names that have been dropped. And for those of you who don't know what reptilians are, these are considered galactic dark forces. You could say aliens. If you don't believe in that, that's fine. Like I said, this is a triggering show, but this is real. This is as real as it gets. I've lived in horror. I've seen and experienced all of these energies, and it nearly killed me. And so that's why I take this seriously, since I've lost so many friends to suicide, addiction. A lot of this is the core wound. There is fear and separation and the lies of the church, the lies of the patriarchy, and the lies of reptilians and Epstein, and all of these things are connected. I'll drop a show that Anthony actually shared with me. Again, maybe very disturbing, but I'll drop in Elizabeth April's link where she goes deeper. We don't want to go too deep today because this is a lot for you to take in. But being able to have someone like Anthony in your back pocket, or even myself as a healing practitioner, I'm here to help regulate your central nervous system and teach you how to protect yourself through your daily practice, rituals, and all of the things. There is a question that I wanted to throw up on the screen, Anthony, and we could say the answer is reptilians, but I'm curious to see what you say. Lily's asking, was there a specific race, bloodline, or kind of consciousness that is responsible for the divine feminine suppression this 5,000 or so years ago? I'll let you answer, and then I have my own answer for that.
Okay. Yeah, there are different perspectives on this, different viewpoints. The reptilians are involved with that, because back when we had Atlantis, we had Lemuria. Anunnaki were here too. And so there were, at that time, from what people like Elizabeth April and other people say with their experiences, we had multiple races of beings here. We were walking around with them at that time. But there's a lot of information out there, and we don't know how much of it is actually accurate. But we hear a lot about the Arcturians. There's an angelic race of Arcturians, and there's a dark race of Arcturians, just like the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki have been involved in slavery of humanity ever since the very beginning, and so have the reptilians.
Yeah.
And it was too much divine masculine patriarchal energies that was a lot of it, I think, responsible for a lot of the destruction. And then just kind of like taking divine feminine away out of the Bible and out of the other religious texts and out of consciousness, and just hiding it away because they don't want us to know it, because that's where the power is. Yeah. That's where the power is in divine feminine. This is coming back to the planet right now. Right now, this is what's coming back to the planet. We're going back to divine feminine way of being. That doesn't mean that it's only going to be females that are going to be coming into being leaders and positions of government and things like that. It's going to be the merging of how it was before, where feminine and divine masculine were intertwined together. They were one. They were at one point. Now they were separated. Ever since then, we've been down this darker road, so to speak. You know.
That's why so many of us have been operating from more masculine energy. And I'm glad you reiterated that. I think we mentioned it before, but Absolutely. All of us have feminine and masculine hemispheres in our brain. Even if you're non-binary, you know, no matter, I'm a big pro LGBTQ plus supporter. I do believe, you know, a lot of us are actually becoming androgynous in essence, if you will, because we want to let that shit go about man versus woman, white versus black. All of that is separation. All of that is inequality. And so I even, if you're in Minneapolis this weekend, I'm teaching a sacred union Kundalini workshop on how to balance out your hemispheres of your brain, which ultimately goes back to healing the mother-father wound, ultimately goes back to healing the church wound, the religion wound, predatory wounds, sexual trauma, witch wounds from many lifetimes. I was burned at the stake many lifetimes for being a powerful woman, healer. Men also, right? Christ himself was a witch that got killed because he was speaking truth. So let that sit in. The real Easter, oh boy, don't get me started on that. We're going to be here for 5 hours if we talk about the real story behind Easter, which is this Sunday here in America. So just warning you, even Easter has a lot of bullshit behind it, right? That is religion is being deconstructed now more than ever. I just want to acknowledge Lily. Thank you. I'm so glad that the divine brought you to our show today, and that you're getting some support from me and Anthony. Just again, if you're new, please like, subscribe. We want more people to hear about this, don't we, Anthony? So if you can like and subscribe, hit the share button.
Yes.
And Anthony, we haven't scheduled our part 2, but we'll definitely be doing that and letting you know. So if you subscribe, you'll be notified when the next part 2 is going to be.
Right.
I know we're wrapping it up here because I wanted to keep the show consumable, and I know it's been slightly overwhelming, but I wanted to, I guess, before we ask the final question, is there anything else kind of to summarize how people can, you know, maybe try to grasp or understand this other than the resources that we're going to provide? And I am going to give them your email address, Anthony, so they could reach out to you. I know you have some really basic, like level 1 information that you can email to them. But
yes.
Is there anything else that you haven't shared yet that you really want to share?
My main email for business is Mystic Taurus 2 at gmail.com. And that's where, if I don't get a phone call or a text message, you know, people contact me through email also. That's the main one.
Cool. I'm actually going to put that on the slide. So if you're watching it, Anthony, does that look right? Mystic Taurus 2 at gmail.com.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
But then also
cool.
people are comfortable with email contact, others with phone, others with text message. So I'll take contact from all those. Yes. And I do have a Facebook page showing, I just did some special pinups yesterday on my Facebook page, especially for anybody who comes from your show, watch your show, gets or refer to me, they get a substantial discount. So
awesome. Yeah, and I can't sing his praises enough. Not only did he help remove the reptilian forces for me, he was able to offer up some Reiki and healing and central nervous system regulation. Now I'm a self healer. I do so much. I've learned so much of it during my spiritual awakening this past 5 years. But we all need each other, right? We can't get by now without a little help from our friends. So we want to be an aligned front here today to share with you that even as healers and empaths, we really have got to link arms and come together and talk openly about these things. It can be very confronting to realize, oh my gosh, we've been controlled by these otherworldly beings since the beginning of time. Again, you don't have to agree with us or believe it, but it is a little bit disconcerting, especially if you've always seemed to have quote unquote bad luck or money issues or health issues. I'm sorry, but the doctor's not going to know this.
yes.
The minister, the priest is surely going to shoot you down and say you need to, go to church and say a few more Hail Marys. And especially if you're struggling with addictions like me, I really struggled with addiction, not understanding that I was operating from fight or flight because I was surrounded by these dark energies. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on stuff that was supposed to help me. I put my naturopath probably through college with the amount of money that I spent. I took all these blood tests and poop tests and all of this kind of stuff. But guess what? We're 60% energy beings, people, 60%. And only 30% mind and 10% these physical meat suits. So if energetically you're not feeling safe, your reptilian brain, hello, reptilian brain, get it, is going to kick in. And that's why we're addicted to fear as a planet. We're addicted to fear because of the reptilian brain in our frickin' bodies, okay? So if you don't tap into source, someone like Archangel Michael, I work with Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, Isis, Osiris, Shiva, Kalima, and my ancestors and the Galactic family that, we're all galactic starseeds at the end of the day. If you don't understand that, guess what? You're just a part of the system. You keep paying your insurance, you keep going to work and getting, paid by the man who may very well be controlled by forces that are beyond you. So no wonder you can't get a raise, or no wonder your marriage is falling apart, because there's more going on behind the scenes than you even know. So that's why I wanted to be brutally honest and share and be more open about my story. And then next time we'll dive deeper into reptilians and how you can protect yourself and how you can leverage this time to wake up and remember who you truly are. Like Anthony was talking about, your purpose. And you can only really do that through shadow work. I'm sorry, the therapist can help you only so far.
Right. And that's how you're going to wake up. You have to do the shadow work. And through the shadow work, this is where you regain your sovereignty. This is where you regain and own your power. And you're going to live authentically. This is the only way you're ever going to be able to live authentically. You got to go through this. This is how you gain like I said, your sovereignty back. You gain your power back. You got to take your power back, because until you take your power back, you are susceptible to being attacked again. You're susceptible to being bamboozled by a narcissist, right? So when you're in your power, you like, oh, F this, or heck, no, I'm not, no, You're like, no, I'm done. Forget it. No more. And when you get to say no more, or you're F it and I'm done, then you're in that process. So you say, I'm going to take my power back. I'm tired of this. When you get mad, you get angry, and then that's when you're going to change. Because it's so easy to be comfortable, stay complacent, but you're never going to gain your power back. You're never going to gain your sovereignty back. You're never going to live authentically.
Yeah.
This is why it's so important to do this. You got to go through the whole process. It's hard. It's challenging. It's an emotionally just drudgery. But when we get rid of the darkness within us, there's more room for light to come in. When you get enough light to come in, then you end up getting to the point where, you start making your good standards, your good boundaries, your ethics, your morals, everything. And this is how you create the pathway to finding out what you're here for and actually doing it, is by setting up these boundaries, these standards, and these ethics and everything, all these different layers of boundaries, standards, ethics. Until you have that set, you're not going to know your purpose. You're not going to be able to move into it and live it, embody it.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I love that you mentioned boundaries and standards and ethics. That's probably what we'll talk about next time too. So just a reminder, as we start to close here, everyone, please reach out to Anthony on his email. Ask him for his free gift, as well as if there's anything he can do for you. Like I talk to people every day, just so you know, everyone, this is also why I brought Anthony, is like, I'm literally talking to people every day who are recovering from narcissistic abuse, who are recovering from good girl and good boy abuse and being shut down. And even if you don't identify as an empath, you may know an empath or a sensitive who is going through a lot of shit right now, and they think, maybe I did something to deserve this. Guess what? It's really just all as within, so without. And if you don't have the wherewithal and knowledge that this is way more than the Bible, this is way more than the government, this is way more than the things that we got certified in or went to school and got degrees in. None of this was taught in school. I wonder why. But now it's coming out so that you can wake up and remember that you are sovereign, you are love, you are light, and you deserve to get to the other side of your pain and suffering or challenges in life. So Anthony, thank you so much for being here today. As always, it's always great to have a first-time guest, and any first-time guest, I always close with this question. When you hear the phrase healthy and wealthy and wise, Anthony, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so I did my homework. So I actually had a lot going into that, actually. And one of the things you said is what makes you wealthy, healthy, wealthy, and wise is you're on the path of transforming your fear to fuel into purpose.
Mm.
But you got to have some things built, like I said just a little while ago. You want good physical, mental health. That's the foundation. You got to have, like I said, healthy boundaries with standards, with people and relationships within yourself, protecting your own physical and spiritual energies, right? And same thing on the wealthy side. Your physical, mental health is your wealth. That's the first layer of your wealth. And then recognizing the importance of good stewardship of whatever you have, right?
Mm.
Discipline and boundaries, standards, ethics, integrity, spiritual connection, healthy people relationships. And then and the biggest part with me was learning from the military is a term we call situational awareness. Developing these disciplines and a mindfulness within yourself of situational awareness. Where am I energetically? Where am I emotionally? Where am I physically? Where am I mentally? And like all the energies as empaths, as we absorb, we need to identify all these energies. What are we absorbing and identify them? And then we need to have an awareness program and discipline set up to where we know where these energies are at. And we know once it gets up to a certain point, once it goes over that edge, like on a roller coaster, once you goes over that edge, you can't stop what's coming energetically, emotionally, mentally. You can't stop it. So make these habits. So you know when you're getting to the 60, 70% being overwhelmed, and you can stop it. You have some kind of mental program, awareness program to stop it. That's another big thing. And which is going to lead, we talked about our authenticity. We talked about sovereignty. And what I like to talk about authenticity is not just authenticity, but you-authenticity. Y-O-U-authenticity. Your own authentic self. You're not copying somebody else. You're coming into your own. You're claiming it. Without sovereignty, without your power, it won't happen. And then there's also learning experiences. You got to learn from past successes. This is why going through and doing the work, the real deep work. You got to learn from your successes and with the experiences that were not successes. It comes down to validating ourselves. We got to learn to love ourselves again, and we got to unlearn a lot of things or relearn a lot of new things. And it's gaining a balance between the divine feminine and divine masculine again, and integrating together. That's when this whole earth is going to change.
Amen to that. Thank you so much. And that's a quick reminder too, on Sunday, I'm having that Sacred Union workshop, yoga workshop, but it's more than a workshop. It's a life-changing transformational workshop to help you heal and work through a lot of the gunk and the shadows that we were alluding to today. So thank you, Anthony. We're going to sign off for today. Again, if you haven't already, please hit the like or subscribe or share button. Sharing is caring. Even though this may have been triggering for some of you and you don't understand all of it, there's someone out there that's hurting with addiction, grief, trauma, divorce. All of it is a symptom of the times that we are in. So until next time, everyone, here's to your best health, your best wealth, trusting your best wisdom within. Bye-bye for now.